I'm gonna preface this by saying that a lot of this video is going to be recapping info that is pretty obvious and well presented in the games, and there's gonna be some comparing and contrasting, and then we're gonna get into the major crackpot theory at the end. So if you're looking for the really weird stuff, you're gonna have to wait a little bit, and I'm sorry about that, but that's the best way to organize this video. Also, spoilers for both Xenoblades X and 2. It kind of goes without saying that there are plenty of blades in the Xenoblade series. It's a common weapon type in JRPGs, and also kind of in the name of the game. But the two more recent games decided to go one step further, and have blade as a proper noun in-universe, referring to a specific type of person. The organization Blade in X, and the race of blades in 2. I'm going to talk about the latter first and then the former, because the words the acronym BLADE stands for are the source of the very crackpot theory that I've been cooking up. In Xenoblade 2's world, the Blade system was first created by the architect Klaus in order to supervise and collect data on the new life he created while attempting to restore the world that he destroyed. Core crystals were already created in the old world as an attempt to replicate brain cells, so they already contained DNA and other important biological information and data. As such, Klaus seeded the Cloud Sea he created with them, leading to the first Titans being born. Over time, these Titans begat life living on their backs, and even new sentient races over time, so Klaus decided to create the Blade system in order to oversee these new humans, in hopes that they wouldn't repeat the mistakes that led to the end of the world in the past. Titans create core crystals, and when a human with some poorly defined qualities known as aptitude resonates with one, a blade is awakened from it. This person is now the driver of that blade, and when they work together they can draw out immense power from their bond. A stronger bond, more power. Blades excel at manipulating the ether that permeates the world, presumably as a result of the conduit exploding and stuff, and through their connection to their driver, they can give them that power too. In the past, blades used to be a bit less combat-oriented, and not all of them had weapons, but over time they evolved to the point where they are now, where each one has a weapon and an element of ether they specialize in. They can fight with ether and their weapon on their own, but when the driver takes the weapon and they beam power into them, the pair is capable of a lot more working together. About 500 years prior to the start of the base game, drivers and blades usually fought as a tag team pair, basically just two individual people fighting together and watching each other's back, with the blade using their generated weapon from their body, and the driver just using a regular conventional one. Laura and Jin, however, were broke and couldn't afford another weapon, so they had to make do just with Jin's sword and Laura's makeshift charm whip, which led them to develop a new style of fighting where they passed the sword between each other in order to attack. This ended up being able to draw out even more of Jin's power than before, and by the time of the main game, this actually became the standard way in which drivers and blades fought. When a driver dies, their blade returns to its core crystal. After a time, the crystal becomes active again, and the blade can be reawakened by another worthy driver, but without its previous memories. A crystal will always contain the same blade after a first awakening, but it's heavily implied that aspects of the blade that comes out when a crystal is resonated with for the first time are dependent on the driver. Things like the blade's appearance, personality, weapon type, element, abilities, all that kind of thing seems to be directly related to the personality of their original driver. And it also seems that drivers with stronger forces of will, more aptitude, or something of the like, awaken more powerful blades, and blades with unique weapon types also seem to be stronger than the norm. After resonation, it's also shown that the personality and actions of a driver can have a more subliminal, or sometimes a lot more overt, influence on the personality of the blade, but they are distinct people from each other, and not always exactly the same person, though there is a bit of back and forth imprinting going on. When a blade is returned to its crystal, the data comprising its memories and experiences alongside humans is sent to the Trinity processor, two cores of a powerful supercomputer powered by the conduit, where it's processed and something is set back to the core, allowing it to be reawakened. Blades might seem to be immortal as long as their core isn't damaged, recovering from damage to their body and only dying, temporarily so, if their driver dies, but in reality, they have lifespans that just span centuries of reawakening, eventually turning into Titans, completing the life cycle as that Titan, will release more core crystals, which will eventually become even more blades. Because of the way they were reconfigured to work alongside the blade system, the two cores of the Trinity processor, named Logos and Pneuma, can also get in on the action, as when a worthy driver resonates with them, an extremely powerful blade with power derived directly from the conduit itself, known as an Aegis, is awakened. This is, of course, the main conflict of Xenoblade 2, that between the Aegises that were awakened from the Logos and Pneuma cores. On another and very, very different hand, in X, the organization of Blade, this time spelled BLADE, all caps as an acronym, is a military organization that answers to and supports the temporary provisional government of New Los Angeles, and is also effectively a restructuring of the original United Government forces that were tasked with protecting the White Whale. The organization has a lot of different goals, from exploring Mira, to finding the Lifehold core to save everyone, to outreach contacting other Xeno races, as well as solving issues inside the city. As such, it's split up into 8 different divisions. The curators are surveyors, collecting materials. They are the scientists who try to figure out how and why Mira works the way it does. The Harriers are tasked with fighting tyrants, extremely powerful monsters that pose a direct threat to society, or just happen to be disturbing the ecosystem or other things. Interceptors are in charge of more typical JRPG monster subjugation, as well as acting as bodyguards for survey teams and rescuing lost NLA citizens. Interceptors are basically a defense, as opposed to the Harriers, who are an offense. Harriers will go out and fight a threat if they think it might happen in the future, while Interceptors more guard people and respond to threats that are known to exist. Mediators are basically the diplomats. They resolve problems between citizens of NLA, as well as sort of being outreach to Xeno races and helping them integrate into the new combined society. Outfitters are Blade's R&D division, supporting the arms manufacturers in the city, as well as developing weapons themselves for both Skells and infantry fighting. The Pathfinders are also explorers, but a bit of a different kind. Their main job is expanding the Frontier Nav system, which connects all of Mira together and provides a lot of useful information and resources. Their main job is installing the data probes that Frontier Nav is linked up through. Prospectors, on the other hand, are material gatherers again, but this time with a goal of things that will actually improve quality of life, as well as providing materials to carry out research and develop new technologies. They're the guys who are mainly responsible for mining Moranium and all of that stuff. Reclaimers are kind of one of the more important divisions, because they're tasked with discovering and recovering pieces of the White Whale and Lifehold in order to recover technology and information, which is kind of the biggest thing leading into potential discoveries of the Lifehold core. Unlike Xenoblade 2 blades, which can take a wide range of appearances but technically are just one species, Xenoblade X blades consist of a bunch of different races from a bunch of different planets. The vast majority of them are humans inhabiting mimiosomes, which are robots designed to mimic the feeling of being human in every possible way, but throughout the story, humanity discovers other sentient xenoform races that are friendly and want to ally with them, and as such, a bunch of them immigrate into NLA, creating a combined multicultural society, and as such, members of a lot of those races choose to join Blade as well. While Xenoblade 2 blades focus on sort of borderline magic and reality warping through ether, which is something very strange because it comes from the conduit, and God knows what that is. I mean, like, literally, God might know in-universe. Xenoblade X characters are purely technology-based. There are a bunch of potentially supernatural things that occur in the game, but in terms of fighting, even the ones who aren't mimiosomes use solely high technology, and they get stronger both by becoming better fighters via technique, but also just by getting and using more powerful gear. Certain blades who have gone through a licensing procedure, including gaining approval for all 8 divisions, may also be awarded with a Skell license, allowing them to pilot those mechs around and use them on jobs that might require it. These, in-universe, seem to be a lot more powerful than fighting on foot, although in-game, a ground build will be able to eclipse a Skell build once you get really good at things. Contrast this to Xenoblade 2 blades, where mechs are known as artifices and are directly tied to the Trinity processor itself, and as such, only Aegises are actually able to use them. This being said though, the average Xenoblade 2 blade, just as a result of ether power and that stuff, seems to be a lot more powerful than an average Xenoblade X blade, who is basically just a normal human with potentially some superhuman physical feats and durability, as well as a bit of futuristic weaponry. And now it is major conspiracy theory time, because we have to talk about what the acronym BLADE in X actually means. In the English version of the game, i.e. localized, not the original developer intent, BLADE stands for Builders of the Legacy After the Destruction of Earth. This is a pretty good acronym, and does fit what BLADE actually is quite a bit, I'm not denying any of that, but that's not the interesting one, because the original Japanese acronym is a bit more interesting and a bit harder to decipher. It is Beyond the Logos, Artificial Destiny Emancipator. As in, the organization is able to surpass Logos, whatever that is, and somehow with the use of technology or something artificial, free humanity's destiny from something that's holding it down. This could be construed as the artificial part is just mimeosomes and the technology used, and emancipating destiny is basically just saving humanity from its fate of fading away as the lifehold core ticks away by, finding it. And that makes a bit of sense, but the very, very interesting one is the word logos. Philosophically, and its original Greek meaning, logos has to do with reason or rationality that governs the universe, and in religion, which the Xeno series is great at, it is also tied specifically to Jesus, the Son, specifically, in Christianity. This is also interesting because Logos is one of the cores of the Trinity processor, alongside Ontos and Pneuma, Ontos having a different Japanese name, and this makes sense because the Trinity processor, all of the names of the cores have to do with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Logos just being the Son. But the weird thing is that Logos does show up in both games. So this could mean a bunch of things. Artificial destiny. Mira is actually a simulation that humanity got caught in somehow. It's something related to the Zohar, and Blade has to break it out of this. But my wacky ass crackpot theory is that Logos in Blade and Logos to the Trinity core are actually the same. We know from supplemental material to Xenoblade 2 that before they were awakened as blades, the cores of the processor had different personalities, which were created by basically putting its AI into a simulation. So, what if that simulation was Mira? That would explain a lot of different things. And that this is specifically the simulation that the Logos core was put in. Possibly even as an amnesiac robot person who you get to control in Xenoblade X. And that these experiences in this sandbox world thing, that's also severely limited, no one can escape Mira, no one knows what's outside of Mira, no one knows where Mira is, Earth is completely gone, all we know is that it was kind of destroyed, which sort of makes sense, because the space station is also where Earth got destroyed from and all that stuff. But, yeah, what if Xenoblade X, you were just playing through the simulation that Logos, the Trinity core, had its AI developed from, and then that AI was later completely erased when the Blade system was created, and when it was awakened by Malthus, creating Malos. So yeah, it would kind of be a bit of a Shaggy Dog story where, oh, yep, it was a simulation the entire time, you weren't just a robot, but you were an AI from another universe, and then you just completely get erased before another game. But I don't know, there's gotta be a tie between Logos and Logos. The other possibility is that Malos didn't truly die when he disintegrated at the end. He just transported to the X universe. Maybe it had something to do with the Samarians, like I theorized before. But I don't know. We do know that the final version of X's plot and drafts for 2s were probably being written at about the same time, so there might very well be a connection there. And yeah, that's where I was going to end it. This video was originally just going to be contrasting the two blades to each other, because they are very, very different in a lot of different ways. But then I came up with this wacky theory and figured that I should at least explain it a little bit, what I was thinking, because it would probably get the juices rolling for some of you, and you might be able to come up with a much, much, much better theory than I had just based on this. But yeah, I wish I could say I had more to talk about, but I don't really. Next week's going to be another Xenoblade 1 and D&D week, which I just basically took a month off last month because I didn't have time to do as long and intricate a video as one of those. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to start working on the second Xenogears recap. And until next time, this is Luxon, signing off.